What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Realtor Success Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Brown. You can connect with me preferably on Instagram at JordanSellsATX. Man, last week we had a jam-packed episode from Emily Shelton, one of my partners here at the Wolfpack, who's absolutely crushing it in client nurture. I think that's something that we can all improve in. I think when things fall through the cracks, it's a good refresh, a good lesson to go back and listen how she's really simplifying it. But today's episode, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited to have this guy on because he came to one of our events last year, helped our agents, and we walked away from that going, oh my God, this guy's super legit. He's got an incredible story as well. Came from nothing, had 12 failed businesses by the time he was 24. Most people pack it up, call it a day, fall into a corporate job. And this guy defied the odds and made his path by focusing on one skill, which is communication. Super excited to have him on. Before we get into the interview, if you hear anything interesting, anything that you want to learn more about what it looks like to partner with this gentleman and I here at the Wolfpack, please, there's going to be a link in the bio where you can book a private one-on-one call. We're excited to talk with you, get to learn more about your business and how we can best assist you to blow your sales up in 2026 and beyond. So ladies and gentlemen, tune in. This guy has over $150 million in transactions touched himself, 1 million in commission generated in his first 3 years as a realtor. So he knows what he's talking about. There is proof in the pudding right here. He's trained over 10,000 agents himself, over 5,000 agents he's coached, which has resulted in those same students producing just shy of $1 billion in sales. He's spoken at over 350 events. We're so excited to welcome to the podcast, Alexis Valladares. What's going on, brother?
Jordan, how are you, man? That was an amazing introduction. I really appreciate it. That was rock solid, dude.
I had my coffee this morning.
I love it. So did I. I just finished up my coffee now. I'm excited, man. I'm excited to share the story, and hopefully, whether it's one person or 1,000 people that get something from this, if it helps them blow up their sales this year and beyond, like you said, that's the objective here. We're here to give value and help them get to where we've been able to get to.
Absolutely. And I know you're the man to deliver today, man. I listened to you, like I said, last year. Your event was so impactful with Mike Sherrard, and just hearing your story, which I think a lot of success stories start with some kind of failure, right? And failure pretty well. And what I've learned about you, you've had multiple failed businesses before you got into real estate and really doubled down on that communication skill. Take us to the beginning, man. What did that look like? So you had an entrepreneurial spirit. You wanted to start something. What were those businesses? Maybe some of the lessons you learned, and just kind of get us caught up to present day here.
Yeah, so entrepreneurial spirit was born. I got to give credit to my dad for sure. He's like the risk taker of the bloodline. He was a very successful entrepreneur in his day. He owned multiple gyms in Florida, Texas, and Puerto Rico. Eventually, that business ultimately failed as well, which taught me and him a lot. But he was the one that planted that idea of I do not want to work for anybody else. I never want to trade time for money. And 14 years old was when it started, man. High school, my first gig was, buying those big boxes of candy and just reselling them in school.
Dude, I did the same thing. That's so funny. I did the same thing.
Yeah. And that's where people ask me all the time, how come you never feel resistance getting on the phone? It's I've been selling since I was 14 years old. I'm almost 30 now. My entire life has been consumed of just interrupting an individual and trying to provide value and make their life better. And that's what sales is giving someone something where they feel like they've won. And in return, you get a commission or a check or something where you've won as well. And that's when it was born. I did everything from, reselling chargers, iPhone accessories from Alibaba. I don't know if you remember what that was, back in the day. I had my own auto detailing business. When phantom boards were a thing, I was reselling phantom boards. I had my own golf brand, my own golf ball that I designed and never launched. And it was probably over 12. Right? 12 that I can tell you were legitimate LLCs that were filed, opened, and all failed. And the biggest lesson to summarize it all, Jordan, and for realtors listening, this is very important, is failure is a staircase to success. We've heard it time and time again on the internet. the only time you ever truly fail is when you say, I'm done. I'm going to give up on this dream, on this journey. Every single time that I failed a business, I've like taken time to reflect and I'm like, what did I do wrong? And the biggest lesson that I've learned, man, especially as a realtor, is that messy action leads to results. And then you figure it out, you fine tune along the way. With that golf ball brand that I told you about, it took me 2 years to get my final product. And after those 2 years of research and development, hitting thousands of golf balls in a simulator, trying to figure out, the spin, the flight, the launch angle, we never sold one ball, man. We had to try to perfect this product that was going to be amazing, and we never talked to anybody about it. We never sold a single golf ball. And that's usually what realtors try to do. They try to perfect their CRM, their social media, their marketing, and they never get on the phone and have a conversation with someone about buying or selling real estate. Because they never go to a listing presentation because I don't know how to present. Well, going to a listing presentation and having someone tell you in real time, hey man, this is what you did wrong. The other realtor that I gave to listen to, this is what they did right. In real time, that's you learning. So
there's only so much
answer, but yeah, that's
no, that's great. And I think you touched on so many good points. One, like the agents that we have brought on into our team, so many of them are eager. There's all this high motivation, but then if the action doesn't follow it, you're right. There's no learning actually happening. I think there's this tendency to want to know everything before you truly get started. Mm-hmm. And I tell people, if you know contracts front to back and your email signature is tip top and looks super clean, but you have no one to send that to or no one that it's relevant for, you're the best kept secret in town. The biggest thing for a realtor in this day and age, or I mean, really since the beginning of the industry, is getting out and having more conversations, because conversations lead to relationships, which build trust, which ultimately is what's going to earn business. That's awesome. I mean, it's great that you mentioned, like, we spent 2 years trying to perfect this product and didn't sell a single ball. Like there's a valuable lesson in there. And so you took those lessons, took those failures and kept trying different things. I think that's another hidden lesson in here, is that realtors will often have this idea of, well, I'm going to be a big social media presence. That's that's the sexy thing these days is, yeah, I'm going to be X. I'm going to be Y. I'm going to be this one thing. I'm going to do this one thing. And if that doesn't pan out, I guess I'm just done. And tell me about like your start into real estate. So you have these businesses. What kind of allured you about real estate, and what did you see in yourself that went, you know what, like I think I could do this?
I didn't think I could do it, to be honest with you. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And to kind of, take it back a little bit, I got my license in 2020. In 2019, I had been caddying, which for those that don't know, it's like when you carry golf bags for the golfer. It's very similar to like being a waiter or waitress at a restaurant. You're grabbing their golf clubs, you're helping them get along the golf course. And in 2019, I decided to move from Miami to Sheboygan, Wisconsin, which is in the middle of nowhere, in freezing cold, away from my family, and in the most uncomfortable situation that I've ever been in. And that experience was an epic failure, right? I went there to raise money to be able to continue working on the golf ball. And I ended up spending all of my money and coming back negative in debt because of, raising funds for the golf ball. And I had just been so uncomfortable in that situation, Jordan, being away from family. I've always been in Miami, close to family. And I pushed myself to a limit there that hit a breaking point where I was like, I no longer want to be mediocre. Right? It was like a conversation with myself at a very low point in my life. Like if we're getting really honest with each other, it's like the point of life where you're like, man, I don't know if I want to keep going type of conversation internally, because at that point I was 23, almost a decade of trying this thing. Everybody in your immediate circle's like, dude, pack the bags, go to school, right? I had dropped out of college 6 times. I say this story all the time. I had been in and out of college throughout all these different failed ventures. My inner circle's pulling me to college. My heart is pulling me to business. And dude, 10 years, bro. Most people would have packed the bags and said, you know what, let me, like you said, let me go to corporate, stabilize myself, get a secure income. And I said, I'm going to make a story out of this. So, 90% of millionaires are created from real estate was the whole mindset behind it. So I just kind of, followed that. I got my license in 2020 at the worst point in my life. Like literally, like it was like 3 weeks before I went to go take the exam was me in my bed from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to, sleep, was just laying in bed, just feeling sorry for myself type of deal. And then my mom walked in one day and she started crying, like really, really, like she just felt pity for me. And something happened that day where I was like, you know what? I'm gonna flip this thing around. I don't ever want to see my mom in that state again, feeling pity for her, grown man of a son. And I had no direction, no idea. I didn't know whether I was gonna fix and flip homes. I didn't know if I was gonna be a residential agent, a commercial agent. I kind of went into the room and I said, I'm gonna commit to this for 5 years. That was my mindset. I'm gonna commit to it for 5 years. And fast forward, you get licensed, you walk into your first brokerage, and there was a shift that happened between the first day of real estate school and then the day I got licensed. I was walking around talking like I'm already making $250,000 a year, dressing like it, acting like it, behaving like it, believing it. And the inner circle, when I say inner circle, I mean like my friends, my family. You start hitting that point where they're like, dude, are you okay? Is something going on? Are you mentally stable right now? Because you go from being this massive failure, right? The dude that everybody's like, man, we're going to have to, give you money so that you can eat food. And then this dude's walking around like, yeah, I'm going to sell $10 million worth of real estate this first year. I was still working part-time as a caddy. I was doing Uber, Postmates, DoorDash in the evening, which is why I love what I do, Jordan, because like so many of my students, they're like, dude, this is my situation. I'm like, I've been there. I've been exactly where you are, man. I know what it's like to grind out a 12-hour Uber shift on Christmas Eve, bro, because the surge is on and you're making more money and your family's at home about to celebrate and you're just trying to do what you can to survive. And dude, I had a ton of urgency, man. I had a ton of urgency. There was no plan B. It was burn the boats, sink the ships. And the reason why I landed on for sale by owners and cold calling was because I told my broker I wanted to make $250,000 this year. And they told me, like, well, you can't do that because you got to nurture, you got to build relationships, you got to build your presence. And I was like, what if I just call strangers? They don't know me. They don't know the old Alexis. They only know the guy that they're talking to on the phone. So I reinvented the whole persona. And we can kind of get into the next segment now. But day one of me having my license, I was on the phone. There was no, I told them, give me whatever you got in terms of scripts. I'm going to read through them really quickly and then just tell me where to call and I'll call. And there was a different level of hunger compared to the other agents that were like trying to read through the scripts, take some courses, some training before they got on the phone and face that rejection. I had been facing rejection for 10 years already. That was irrelevant to me. I wanted to get to as fast as I can.
By that point, a no is nothing. Like it doesn't phase you because you've already put a lot of the reps in. And so much of real estate success is putting the reps in. And one thing you said is that I want to touch on. I played sports growing up, and one of the things that my coaches used to say is practice like you play. And that was you showing up, dressing the part, feeling the part, talking the part. Sometimes we have to like trick ourselves into getting into that right mentality, and whether it's rewiring or if it's tricking ourselves, whatever works to get us in that mode, do it. So many of us were waiting for this almost like a permission from the universe to tell us that we're good enough to do something or that we're prepared enough to do something. The only way that you're going to get prepared is by trial and error. And so I'd love for you to tell me about communication as a skill, especially in sales. And not a lot of people, I think, just think that once you get your license, everyone's going to want to work with you. It's like HGTV and everyone's going to come flock to you. It's not like that. The average person knows 7 realtors. So how do you stand out amongst the other ones? And communication, I think, is one of the strongest skill sets that you can have that increases that gap between you and that next person. So tell me about early on when you were doing your calling, did you realize like, were you really good at it at first, or was it something that you've developed over time?
No, I wasn't good at it at first at all. I was just good at continuing to, hang up and deal with that feeling in your veins when you get rejected, like that crappy feeling that we all deal with. And I was really good at just turning the page and getting back on the phone. But it was trial and error, man. Eventually, really quickly into the calling, I was like, okay, I got to start looking at some sort of guidance, right? Like going on YouTube and figuring out how these calls actually work. Because I was just throwing spaghetti on the wall, hoping that it stuck. But that that's exactly what led me to develop a framework, because I started understanding that, and especially Jordan, if there's something these people can take away, is like when you do one lead source only, you start figuring out that every single client has the same exact problems and they all behave the same exact way. So when you start trying to influence, like salespeople usually try to convince people or force people to do something or corner them into like a set of questions to make them to say yes. When you understand your consumer's behavior, you can almost start like controlling their behavior by the way that you talk to them. So that's what it was, because every single for sale by owner was like, I don't want to pay commission. I already have another 15 realtors in mind. I'm going to wait 2 months and I can do it on my own. There's like a set of objections that they're all going to give you. So once you start, instead of trying to handle it, you start communicating in a way where you're almost like preventing it and building common ground with them instead of being super combative and condescending. It becomes much easier to have a conversation. And then once you make it a numbers game, okay, cool. Every 10 conversations, I'm having 2 leads, and every 10 leads, I get 2 appointments, for example. You just need to hit your numbers. Most realtors make it about feelings and not numbers. You know, they'll go through 5 calls, they won't get any results, they'll take it personally, they'll get emotional, and then they'll go do something else where they feel more validated or it feels safer. And that's all it is, man. It's not that difficult. I think most agents have too many different streams of lead generation. They never get good enough at one to become a master at it. And communication's everything, you know? These people that we're talking to, these for sale by owners, are consumers in general. They're not well-versed in communication. They usually think in negative frames. I always like to define sales as finding people in the marketplace that are already having an internal conversation of how to get from A, you know, whether that's renting, trying to buy, sitting on equity, trying to sell, to B, buying, selling. These people are already having a conversation in their head. I like to paint a picture of like A and B is here. There's a bridge. They're trying to cross this bridge, and under that bridge is like really scary waters. Fear, doubt, anxiety. What if this happens? What if the rates then go down? What if I sell and I can't find another place to move into? They're already having this conversation in their mind. Our job is to find those people that are already having that conversation and help them maneuver that conversation in their mind by asking them better questions and helping them clarify what the best next step is. That
Yeah, you're guiding. Yeah, you're guiding them. You're not trying to convince anybody.
No.
You're guiding them through questions and conversation to the figuring out the outcome that they maybe don't know that they need, but that's what you're there for, is to help them realize that, hey, this is probably what's best for you.
The outcome that's favorable for them, which is so important because most salespeople lead with their commission, what's in it for them. People only care about what's in it for them, and they'll only listen to themselves. So salespeople are usually taught to tell, not ask, and they'll never believe you. They'll always believe themselves. So that's communication. Communication is helping them have a conversation with themselves, like kind of like when you go to a therapist. Therapist is not telling you what to do. They're asking you clarifying questions so you can have a conversation with yourself and come to a conclusion of what you need to do. That's what sales is.
Yeah. And I like that you said these people they're high intent people. FSBOs and expireds are high intent. For sale by owner, they have their home listed. They want to sell it. But most likely, they don't want to pay the selling commission. That's the objection most of the time. And so if you can maneuver around like, hey, you know, working them through the, you know, what if that doesn't happen? What does it mean for them if it doesn't happen? And maybe why they have their guard up, providing some value. Like there's a bunch of different ways that you can go about that, but you know what the objection is likely going to be going into that call, which can make you more prepared to navigate those objections. Same thing with expireds. Expireds, they just had their home listed. All you're doing is calling and saying, look, I think that home definitely should have sold, you know, and I'd love to, like, do you have any intentions for that property? Or are you still looking to sell it? There's a lot of different ways that you can approach these high intent people, but you know that they wanted to. They either actively have it listed or it just expired. So that's the whole point, is you're getting in front of people with high intention. Imagine like if I told you, hey, if there's 10 people in this room, you're at a networking event, there's 10 people in this room, 2 of them are probably people that will want to buy or sell within the next 6 months. You're going to do what you can to go get in front of those people. So I don't know why with calling, there's this different attitude, this different mindset that it's scary, because these people are literally telling you, I am a high intent person. So if you want to cut the gap between A to B from the cold contact to close, like your system has, it's just make the calls. Like really, it sounds so easy in practice.
Right. Well, Jordan, you're bringing up a great point, and if I can talk on this for a second, I think it'd be important.
Absolutely.
A lot of realtors, I want to say a majority of agents, we don't have 12 months, 8 months to wait until a commission check comes in before we have to look for alternatives like Uber, corporate job, back to where we came from. It's been very confusing for me to understand why agents prefer to have comfortable conversations with prospects that don't have any intent versus having semi-uncomfortable conversations with prospects that have the highest intent. Because if you break it down, when you're creating a piece of social media content, that's amazing. That's great. You're reaching many people at the same time, but you're in zero control of their intent, right? When you circle prospect, those are more comfortable conversations, absentee owners, high equity owners, but there's zero control of their intent. I think to clarify the fear behind like calling for sell by owners and expireds is, oh, there's so many people calling, there's so much resistance, until you talk to them a second time. Most agents will never get to the second conversation. They'll call one time, they'll get the common objections, and they'll be like, oh, this person doesn't want to work with me. They'll take it personally, emotionally, instead of looking at the numbers and understanding that the average for sale by owner or expired will only convert after the 5th contact. That's where you start having an actual chance at even having an in-person meeting with that person. Most agents will never do that. Most agents will give up after the first try, and most agents will never get any kind of formal training to tackle these lead sources, which is good news for you watching this right now. Because if you're 50% serious about doing this, it is relatively simple. I have people that are in my program that are full-time moms. I love using that example because like they're at home worried about taking care of their kids most of the day. And within 2 months of being in the program, they are closing for sale by owner listings in competitive markets. And if you break that down, it's like they are beating out 50, 60, 70 agents for every listing they take, only because they're following a system. These people are not grossly talented at communicating. They understand what they're doing. So I've never understood why people choose to target people with no intent versus just like saying, hey, let me learn how to target people with high intent.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where you nailed it. It's people don't have kind of like this operating system to run their daily, like if you're aimless in your pursuit, you can't be mad when your results are scattered and randomized. Versus if you're making it a system, you can have predictable success. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand is if you will get wildly uncomfortable for a few years, you can completely change the trajectory of your entire life. And that's what real estate, because of the way that we're compensated, can do for you. And it doesn't take much. Like you just have to commit. You have to have the framework. You have to have someone that's helping you along the way to, with your coaching, if I'm not mistaken, it's not just video modules. You're actually doing live trainings as well. And you're interacting with your students, correct?
Every Monday, we do a call review session where my students send me their actual live phone calls, and all I do is audit them line by line. That is what we do every single Monday. So it is extremely high tactical training. We do a lot of mindset work because it is required. You have to have a protective shield around your mind. You're gonna deal with a lot of negativity no matter what market you're in with these for sale by owners. It's mostly dealing with rejection and just being able to maneuver that conversation and go to the next call, right? I talk about sales energy. Sales energy is finite, right? You don't have an infinite amount of sales energy, and you got to be very meticulous and cautious with who you even engage in a conversation with. Who do you actually take the time to prepare for an appointment with? Who do you actually go to an appointment with? It's not just like free-for-all calling and hoping you get someone to let you come over to their house and then just go to anybody's house. There's got to be a strategy behind it because you got to be able to dispose of that energy correctly.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we have role play rooms that are active every morning. We have a role play call every morning at 8:30, and we have a what's called the cold call room, which is right now all of my agents are on Zoom together making their dials as a community, because cold calling could be annoying, and doing it alone behind a desk without anybody to pick you up or give you feedback is tough. So that's what we've built.
Yeah. That's awesome. Speaking of, so you're still actively making calls as well. You're still an active realtor, correct?
No, I'm not. No, at all. No. So my full-time priority right now is coaching these agents and building my community at EXP as well.
Awesome. That's
So
awesome.
I fought with
If
that for a couple of years, because some agents are like, well, if you're not in production anymore, I don't want to listen to you. And it's like I'm more tapped into the for sale by owner market now than ever, because I listen to phone calls every day from
Yeah.
markets all over the US. I know exactly what's going on in these conversations.
That's awesome. So partnering means you're getting a full-time real estate coach
Mm-hmm.
who is dedicated to making your business better. I think one thing that's interesting with the way that we're set up over here at the Wolfpack at EXP is you have different leaders that run their businesses differently. You have people that are full-time. You have people that are like split 50-50. And not all the time is it necessarily good to have someone that is distracted, or not distracted, maybe not the right word to use, but their
Focused on their own
priorities
stuff.
are yeah, you've got different things going on. So I love that you're full-time in it. Your students are reaping the benefits of it too. If you were someone who's hearing this and you're going, man, I'm fired up, like I'm ready to get to calling. One thing that I often see with people who do calling is they get a little burnt out and discouraged if things, aren't going well. Did you ever have like a pre-call ritual that just hyped you up for the day, for the session?
That's a good question, Jordan. I want to answer it in a couple different ways. I think people get burnt out on the phone very quickly because there's a strategy before you even get on the phone. A lot of people don't even understand, technicalities with caller IDs and how to correctly find phone numbers. So people are just like literally on the phone on a dialer for hours, and they'll rarely get anybody to pick up the phone. That's a major part of the frustration that comes to agents that are dialing, is they don't have a pre-call strategy to look at the right data, right? And if you're calling for sale by owners, I've always recommended to do it straight from your phone on Zillow. I have multiple training videos on YouTube for free showing agents how to correctly identify the right opportunities on Zillow. In Miami Broward, which is the market I'm in, there's over 400 for sale by owner opportunities. It doesn't make sense to call them from a dialer. It makes sense to go on Zillow and filter through certain criteria and call the best opportunities only, so that you're spending most of your time actually having conversations. That's the technical side of it. The mental side of it, yeah, definitely there's got to be some sort of pre-call ritual. You got to visualize yourself having good conversations. You got to put yourself in a zone of eliminating whatever noise is going on in your mind in your personal life, because these phone calls are about them. They're not about you. I was training a brand new agent that just joined my program yesterday. He started his phone call with the FSBO like, hey, Jordan, would you be open to compensating an agent like me if I brought you an offer? And that you're speaking in terms of yourself. When we speak to a for sale by owner, it's, look, Jordan, I know the last thing on your mind right now is paying a realtor a commission. You're just worried about bringing in the best buyer so that you and your family can walk away from this transaction with the most amount of money. Is it fair to say that? Yes. Assuming
It's all about them.
Assuming there was someone in the middle that connected you to that offer, would it be a horrible idea to consider compensating them? Is that something you'd be open to as long as the numbers made sense for you? You see the difference there?
Absolutely.
That's communicating at a high level.
It's completely about them.
Mm-hmm.
One, it's completely about them. You're also kind of giving them that out where it's like, man, it actually sounds ridiculous for me to say that I wouldn't compensate someone for that.
Exactly.
If the numbers made sense, everything is about accomplishing my goal. If the numbers made sense for me, if someone did the legwork to connect it, like, yeah, of course I'd pay that.
Exactly.
It's all about the changing of the framing and who it's about, who's benefiting from this. You're spot on with that.
Exactly. One more thing, Jordan, can I mention something that I see
Please.
in a lot of my successful students? When you say pre-call ritual, a lot of agents think like, okay, for me to make calls, I have to be in a perfect setting, in a perfect mindset, behind my desk, no distractions to make these calls. That's not reality. Reality is, especially with my students that have families, children, extracurricular activities, they're making these dials in the car, waiting for their kid while they're at soccer practice. They're making these calls at the airport before vacation. I have a student that literally closed 3 deals from one phone call that he made in a super public, uncomfortable setting. He was like, I don't want to dial. I don't feel good. I'm going to pick up the phone and make one call. Boom, landed an appointment. Right? And there's some days where you dial for hours behind your desk and you get nothing. What I try to encourage agents to do is create a very, very frictionless process on your laptop where you can immediately open up Zillow, immediately open up maybe something like PropStream where you can do your property research and have a quick flow to just get on the phone. Within 5 minutes, you're on a conversation. And even if you do it for 20 minutes and you have 2 conversations, if you do that a couple times a day, now you had 4 new conversations. These are all warm seller leads that you're creating for your pipeline. It doesn't have to be this perfect setting, pre-call ritual, no distractions, nobody around you. That's a myth, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's more about, it's not the motivation. It's more about just knowing that you have to get conversations done. Like it's getting, because if you wait until you're motivated, it's almost like you'll argue with yourself. Like you'll bargain with yourself and be like, it's whenever you don't have something going on, like let's say you're one to work out. I know this personally, like if it's just me going to the gym, I'll wake up and be like, man, I didn't really sleep good last night. I'm not really feeling it. But as soon as I involve another person, and I think that's what's so great about you building a community of your callers, like being able to help each other. When I'm needing to show up for not just myself, but for other people, it creates an accountability level. And you know that no matter what I'm feeling that morning, even if I didn't sleep good, I'm going to the gym because now I've involved my reputation, my involvement with another person. And I think that's where accountability can come into play. And I think knowing that you're not alone in this, and when you join a coaching program such as yours, like you've got a team behind you, you've got a high level coach that's coaching you and reviewing every single thing that you do. Like I love that. I think it's missing in our industry. I think we're getting away from the basics, man. Like so many people are chasing the new sexy thing. Like how do I make, and don't get me wrong, I don't think that necessarily these methods are wrong by any sense or like something that you shouldn't do, but we're doing things like, what's the least amount of friction? What's the least amount of effort I can put in to try to be successful? Does it feel that way to you, that people are kind of chasing whatever, like the least amount of effort from me to get it done? I've watched people do AI home tours where it's them doing like an introduction with an AI voice, an AI avatar of themselves. And I'm like, how lazy are we getting as a profession? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And my take on that, Jordan, is I love AI. I'm all for AI. I'm all for social media. The reason why I'm here today is because of social media. Fundamentally, whatever path you're going to take to generate leads, you need to have a fundamental understanding of how to communicate with those leads. And what I tell all my students is whether or not you do for sale by owners forever, having these hard conversations now will make every conversation you have in the future easier, because every human behaves exactly the same way, and all of our consumers are exactly the same in a sense. Whether you generate leads from your AI, your YouTube channel, your social media on Instagram, your TikTok, your open houses, it doesn't matter. You're going to have a conversation with that person to understand their needs, and you're going to have to funnel that into an in-person or on Zoom appointment and have another conversation where you're going to have to, likely, you said in the beginning of this conversation, the average person knows 7 realtors. You're going to have to stand out to a minimum of 7 other agents. And the only thing that makes you stand out is not your brokerage, it's not your marketing plan. Those things definitely assist. It's your communication of those things, of what you're going to do, your understanding of their situation, their problems, their pain points, and their desired outcome. Your ability to communicate that to them and clarify the path on how you're going to get them to the solution is what's going to win you the deals. Lead generation is one pillar.
Yeah.
You got to be able to communicate once you have the lead.
100%. One thing I love that you said is it's your communication, be able to understand someone's problems and then clearly communicate how you're going to solve it. I think especially like with newer agents, there's this, I've seen it myself with, some members on my team is they get here, they get their first listing appointment and they want to prepare this huge presentation that just, and I don't know, I'm not telling people how to or not to run their business. If you've got a stellar presentation, sure. If you think it's going to be a home run, absolutely. But if we haven't done a good enough job of uncovering what their issues are, like I completely changed the way that I do my listing appointments. I used to bring a packet that had, here's my brokerage, here's a little bit about us, here's a little bit about me, here's blah, 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 blah. And then my CMA, all of this good stuff. Me personally, I've completely abandoned that because I understand that I'm going to uncover what their actual issues are and speak to that directly. A CMA, all of that doesn't really matter if I cannot clearly communicate that I understand what your pain points are and how I'm going to directly address them. And that makes me the agent you need to work with. So I don't need a presentation to be able to, on paper, to convince you of that stuff. Sure, I can have my stats, I can have whatever, but really it comes down to, like, I've walked into every listing appointment with a delusional amount of confidence that I'm the person for the job. And that just comes from understanding that I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to listen to what you're telling me, interpret it, and tell you how we're going to fix those problems. Communication, end of the day.
That is the name of the game. Like, if anybody's going to take something away from this conversation, it is what you just said. It is walking into an appointment with delusional confidence in your ability to serve the individual, have a clear understanding of where they're at and where they want to be, and be able to interpret, which is from what they're saying, be able to reframe and recommunicate to them exactly what they mean. Because most prospects, what they say is not what they mean. Like what we said earlier is like, I don't want to pay commission. That's what they're saying. What they actually mean is, Jordan, I want to do everything I can to protect the equity that I built in this home. That's what they mean.
Yeah.
So interpreting is like almost like translating, right? It's like they're speaking a different language, you're interpreting and you're reframing and recommunicating in the right language, in the right frame.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to,
whether you win the business.
Yeah, I'd love to kind of make this next segment about like the tactical. And again, respect to I know you've got a coaching program, so I don't want to step on any toes here, but any tidbits that you could share with us about someone who's calling a FSBO versus an expired, knowing what are some of those common pain points, like really spell it out for the listener of, this is probably what you're going to encounter, and here's one way that I recommend that you can navigate this conversation.
Yeah, for sale by owners is my expertise. We do have a lot of training on expireds as well. I did expireds a handful of times in my career. I preferably recommend for sale by owners. I think they're much simpler to deal with. For sale by owners are in the beginning of their journey, selling a home. And their main concern is typically control of the process and retention of as much money as possible. So they see any middleman or broker or realtor as a threat to their net numbers. And they see any kind of person coming in with expertise or recommendations on how it should get done as someone that's going to take away the control they have in selling their property. And that stems from a lack of trust, right? So to summarize for sale by owners in, I guess, the quickest way possible, Jordan, it's about getting on the phone and really trying to create common ground with these people. In the beginning of my career, all the realtors around me that were making calls are very combative, trying to educate and teach these homeowners on what they should do, why selling for sale by owner is not a good idea, why working with an agent is going to be better for you, and trying to teach and coach these sellers instead of asking them questions to unpack their motives. And why are you selling for sale by owner? When do you need to sell by? What happens if you don't sell? When you do get to your destination, what is the perfect outcome that you're looking for? Right? And then saying, hey, look, by the way, like, Jordan, I don't know if what I've done for other sellers in the past could be of any assistance to you. And I know the last thing you want to do right now is sit down and meet with an agent. If there were a way to actually get you more net money and get you to Florida with your grandkids faster, would you ever consider at least having a conversation just to see if that were a possibility? Or is that something you think is a horrible idea? That's like, I guess, to give you like a little bit of a snippet of what a closing.
It's a master class right there, man. Like
right?
it's addressing the elephant in the room of, I know you probably don't want to talk to a realtor, right? I understand that. But if there was a way, I also love that you lean on your past experience where I don't know if what I've done for past sellers would work for
Mm-hmm.
you, but if there was a way for me to accomplish this goal while protecting your equity, hitting those numbers that you want so that you get to ideal outcome, the thing that I learned is important to you about making this happen, would that be a horrible idea?
Right.
And there's
No,
so
it wouldn't
there's
be a
so much
horrible idea.
nuance
Yeah.
in there.
There's
So much nuance in
so
there.
much psychology in there, and you can, it's not about always using a negative frame, saying something like, "Would that be a horrible idea?" It depends on the prospect's posture in that conversation. Sometimes I'll say, "Look, Jordan, it really sounds like you're the kind of person that wants to weigh out their options. From what you've told me, you're doing everything that you can to make sure you net the most amount of money, and it sounds like having one more conversation about a different path to get there is something you definitely want to hear about, right?" That's a different strategy with a different prospect and a different posture, right? Look, Jordan, you're a really smart guy, and from what you're telling me, you're just really trying to weigh out your options and make the best move for you and your family to make sure at the end of the day, the bottom line, you have as much cash in your pocket. If I had a way where I can net you more money and get you to your outcome faster, you definitely want to hear about that, right? Just to see if it makes any sense. Lean out, sell the exit, right? So that's a lot about what we do. It's not all about the words. It's about the patterns that you're trying to create. You're trying to create patterns because people behave in patterns, right? So you're trying to, it's a dance. You're trying to be dancing in and out with this prospect, leaning in, pitching, talking about what you do. I don't know if what I've done for other sellers in the past would be beneficial for you. That's a lean in, right? And look, at the end of the day, Jordan, you're not going to do anything unless it makes 100% sense, right? That's a lean out. Right. And if we sit down and I go over the information with you, if you feel like what I'm sharing doesn't make any sense, you'll have no problem just being honest with me and telling me, right? No hard feelings.
Yeah.
That's lean out, giving them control. So it's a dance about understanding patterns, and a lot of coaching programs and teachers out there focus on words, scripts, and they don't teach enough of what's behind the words and what it does to the prospect's behavior. And that's what we focus on. That's why on those Monday calls, all we do is like analyze the behavior. Hey, did you see how what you said there made them behave a certain way? You see? So it's about recognizing the patterns.
You can, certain things that you say, like there's a saying, it's not what you said, it's how you said it, right? There's certain ways that you are whether intentionally or unintentionally, you're sending information, it's being received a certain way. And so when you can observe that and in real time, like I love that you do the live call coaching, because even as a 7-year agent myself, I know that I could be better with my communication. I know that there's some times where I've probably said some things that maybe shot myself in the foot, and it happens. And if you're not constantly getting those opportunities to better or to run it by someone else, you'll just continue doing it your way, and you don't know how many opportunities you're losing because of that.
That's it, man. And I think, not to be biased, but the best investment that you can make in yourself as an individual is auditing the way that you communicate with your clients, whether you're doing it with cold prospects, warm prospects, virtual prospects. You're leaving money on the table by not having an organized structure to your communication.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'd love to maybe dive into some fun stuff of maybe some what, like, one of your most difficult conversations that you was like, no way this is going to result in something, and then got it to the closing table. Any wild stories of like, man, that was a tough one?
There's wild stories in terms of like from contract to close, like after the appointment. I'm a very big believer in what I call selective prospecting. If someone's extremely rude or disrespectful to you on the phone in your first encounter, it goes to show a lot about their character and their behavior and how they're going to treat you as, they're your client. That relationship's not going to end well. The referrals are not going to end well if that person's behavior is off from the very first initial conversation. So I teach my students to be very picky with who they engage with. Every transaction that I've had that was successful, the first call is respectful. There's a lot of FSBO prospects that are like really, really disrespectful for no reason. They just treat you like everybody else. And I usually reject those. Now, once you get into the sale, I've had the craziest things happen, dude. I've had my first ever for sale by owner. I remember vividly, I was on the 20th floor of a condo that I had just moved in. I was laying like a starfish on the floor, screaming, crying, because it was going to be like a $35,000 commission check all in. And the seller calls me the day before closing. We got the clear to close. Everything's ready to go. I got like, whatever Gucci shoes I was going to buy at that point in time, like lined up, ready to go. And then they're like, we're not selling. And it was a whole debacle of like, they had something very personal happen in that house. And they were having a really hard time detaching from that idea of leaving that property. And I had no experience on managing those kinds of situations. It was my first transaction, my first sale. And that taught me a lot about myself, how to regulate my emotions. The first thing I tried to do, Jordan, when they called me, was try to convince them to sell. Instead of giving them space and making them feel like I was on their team and creating a conversation with themselves internally on what the best move is. Because if they didn't sell, they were going to get sued. They were going to go through this whole legal process. And that's what I said. I said, hey, if you don't sell, you're going to get sued. Instead of calming them down, being on their team, creating space, and forgetting about what my intentions were. My intentions were the Gucci shoes, the commission, the dinners, whatever was going to happen to my life because of that $35,000 check. And what I do now in every deal with my students, with their deals, let the prospect breathe. Make sure they understand that you are on their team. You don't have an agenda. Even though we all do, we have to put food on the table for our family. But if you are able to convince yourself that you are in it for them, you will always win, much more often than you'll lose. And that was a big takeaway that I had from those first few deals. I was very emotionally involved in what was in it for me instead of protecting their interest.
Yeah. One of my business partners, John Michael, who you met at the event, one thing that he always says is detach yourself from the outcome. As long as your intentions are good, like it doesn't matter if someone pops off at you, like your heart behind it, your intentions. And same thing, like that will come across in the way that you communicate and the way that you make them feel is that, oh, this guy's actually looking out for me. There's been situations where, we've had to tell someone like, hey, like, I actually don't think you should sell right now. Like based on what you've told me, and this is going to shoot me in the foot because I'm giving up the opportunity of making commission. This market doesn't align with your goals or X, Y, or Z. You always have to if you put the client first, good things happen. Exactly. Ultimately, that's at the end of the day, that's what it all boils down to.
Exactly. And I feel like a lot of agents have a difficult time doing that because they never put themselves in a position where they have predictable lead flow, right? They're always worried and stressed and anxious about the next deal because they don't have a process.
Yeah, they're living and dying by the thing that's right in front of them. The first lead that comes through,
the contract that they currently have, right?
Yes, and you can't think that way. Like that, your clients will feel that. I guarantee you, whether directly or subconsciously, you are putting off a almost desperate vibe, and you can't do that if you want to have any kind of longevity in this business and have clients that trust you over a long period of time. That's what it's all about. Like you have to put them first. And you're right. That desperation comes from, man, this is the first solid lead I've had in 3 months.
Right. I don't know when that's going to come.
Absolutely. Versus if I'm picking up and I'm dialing, I'm getting four appointments this week. You don't have to treat every lead like it's a do or die situation. It completely changes the way that your whole psychology around assisting your clients and prospecting, how they work together. It's all like feeding into each other. You're desperate because you don't have sales or because you don't have anything in the pipeline. You don't have any pipeline because you're afraid of rejection. And like, it's all just feeding into each other, into this kind of vicious cycle that a lot of agents unfortunately get stuck in.
That's it. There's a reason why I talk about the feelings versus the numbers. When man, when you're at a listing appointment and you have $1 million deal on the line, but you know that you have 3 more scheduled, and you know that when you make your call session happen in the next 3 days, you're going to schedule another 5, you're able to really detach from that situation and give that prospect room to breathe and make a decision. And you're going to win more business because of that,
even just the way you handle adversity when it comes to something that comes up that you maybe didn't handle exactly the way that you wish you would have, or man, like I really just probably blew this deal. Like, man, don't, if that's your one thing that you've had going, yeah, I can
Yeah,
understand why you're
exactly.
overthinking that. But if you have other things going on, you have other prospects to, or other leads to be calling, that's where it becomes this game of just like, man, you know what? That wasn't my best showing. I'm going to get better and I'm going to do it. I'm going to kill it on this next one. That's the difference. Is if you sit there and dwell because it's your only one, that's exactly what you'll do. You will stay stuck in this pity party of things that I didn't do right, or man, I blew it, and like you feel the weight of it so much more. Versus if you come from a place of service, but with a consistent pipeline, it's a completely different feeling in your business. So I love that, dude. It's just, it gets me fired up because I feel that this conversation is needed in our industry. I again, kind of going back to that, what I said earlier, I feel like people are chasing easy, and sales is not necessarily meant to be an easy business. And if there was a playbook to where everyone could just not do, put a tenth of the effort that it takes, and you'll get this kind of like everyone would do that. But instead, they come in, they go, man, I'm going to do this comfortable thing and I'm not going to push myself. And by the end of the week, you're looking back going, man, I didn't actually generate any real conversations. I didn't do anything that moved my business forward. And the best way, in my opinion, to get that done as a new agent is exactly what you are teaching. You have to have more conversations. I tell our newer agents and my mentees here at our brokerage that you have, like, at the end of the day, no matter what it is that you are chasing, no matter what goals you're chasing, no matter what prospecting you want, at the end of the day, it comes down to conversations. How many conversations did you have? Because there's more than just calling. Calling is the direct way to do it, but there's other ways, and the people who are successful are those who are having more conversations. So whether it's John Michael here locally has a Facebook group, a dad's Facebook group, crushes it with that. He knows so many people from that Facebook group, and in-person events, he says, is the secret sauce, because you're getting belly to belly with people and having what conversations that build relationships, that build trust over time. You're making the calls, like you're teaching people to make these calls and you're building trust by uncovering and leading people over the pain points into the outcome that they want. It's all about conversations. And I think too many realtors, if you really asked yourself, if I asked the listeners right now to really think back on the last 2 weeks of what you've done in your business, can you honestly say, I did what I needed to have more conversations? And I think a lot of times that answer tends to be no. And calling is one of the best ways you can do it. And your program will teach people you don't have to have any background in this either. You can be completely brand new. Like, Alexis has done the hard work for you. Alexis has made this as easy as possible to where you can have systematic success. Tell me a little bit more about your program, what people can get when they partner with you, um, everything in between, all the nuances of what it looks like in a partnership with you.
Yeah, it's very customized to the individual. We have a certain avatar of agent that we're looking to work with, someone that's hungry, ambitious, and willing to roll up their sleeves and do the work. This is not a done-for-you program by any means, which is what most of the agents out there want. They want something that's done for you. This is where we create a custom plan for you. We tell you exactly what you need to do, depending on who you are, your experience, your market, your time availability, and your income goal. We create that plan for you, and we give you the environment to succeed. You'll see me once a week, every Monday, to be able to review your calls. It's a very small, tight, intimate community. You have role play calls every morning, and you have that cold call room that you can be a part of every day. And we bring in multiple guest speakers every single week to tackle different parts of the mindset, the industry, and things that you need to know in between the crevices of making the actual calls that are required for you to have success. And I'm passionate about this, man. Like I said, I've tricked my brain into prioritizing my customer, whether that be my sellers in the past or my students now. I know that if I put them first, my results will follow. So I have a bias where I care about this a lot more than anybody else, I think. And it's a weakness for sure, because I tend to over deliver on what I promise. But that's usually why people stay with me longer. And if you're an agent listening to this and you want to, like you're saying, Jordan, not just develop the ability to make a cold call, but when you're that agent like John Michael doing a belly to belly event where you're meeting people and you're having conversations, or you're even creating content, or you're having someone walk into your open house, you need to have a framework on how you're going to go about that conversation. You need to be able to pivot, adapt, and overcome different situations, different objections, different sales resistance. And that's what we teach how to do at what I think is the highest level.
Yeah. One thing I love about your Instagram, which I want people to go check you out here in a second. One thing I love about you get a sense of there's a warmth behind your calls. If that might be a weird thing to say, but you're making cold calls, but the conversations feel more warm. And that doesn't happen by accident. I feel like that's built into the DNA of your program. And just from your experience, like you've baked that into being able to, it builds trust. It breaks down that unfamiliarity. It breaks down every barrier that someone will have for this stranger who's trying to, at the end of the day, kind of dig into your situation and find out how we can best
Exactly.
assist you. But you do it with such a warmth, so different than anyone else I've seen in the industry who has a program like this. So I wanted to give you your flowers there, because when I look at cold calling gurus, coaches, whatever, they like a lot of them kind of rub me the wrong way. There's a negative, almost like a negative aspect of it, where they're almost like dogging, like I don't know. It's like they're just trying to like bulldoze their way through and force an agenda, versus you. When I look at your videos and I listen to your calls, it's warm. It's with the highest intent of the person on the other side. So I don't think that you get that. I know you don't get that everywhere.
Right.
So I just want people to really consider, like, if you're looking at getting into this industry, if you're looking at taking cold calling seriously, Alexis is your guy. And a partnership with us would look like you're getting the complete training here. You're getting high level sales agents that are committed to furthering your business. And so I hope you pick that up on this interview here today, that Alexis has a great heart behind him and what he does, and he's pouring into his community at levels that you don't get everywhere. So if you want to learn more, Alexis, where can people find you on Instagram?
Yeah, so it's just my full name, Alexis Valladares, and my YouTube is the same exact handle. My full name, Alexis Valladares. I have a lot of great content on YouTube, and very active on social media. And if anybody wants to have a conversation, I'm sure we'll link something below here, and they can just reach out to me on Instagram as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There will be a link in the description of this video on the social platforms where you can book a call with myself and Alexis. And we just want to get to know more about your business, how we can best partner, be in your corner to help make you the agent that you want to be, to have that predictable pipeline that every agent desires when they get into this business. Alexis, give me one final take, one bit of advice if you were to tell a new agent right now, or someone looking to scale.
One piece of advice would be to embrace the hard conversations early on in your career so that they can get easier as you go. Do the hard stuff first. If you're a brand new agent right now, or someone that is doing, less than what you want to be doing per year, figure out a way to have these difficult conversations, build that sales mentality. You are a salesperson that is here to serve, and your entire career will become easier if you lead with the hard stuff first. Easy stuff now is going to lead to hard stuff later. Hard stuff now is going to create easier opportunities later on.
There we go. Guys, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, you've heard how you can reach out to Alexis and myself. We'd love to hear from you. Give us some feedback. Also, give the podcast a like, no matter what platform you're listening on. A 5-star review would be appreciated. Those are free, easy ways to support the podcast and give us feedback that you're enjoying what you're hearing. Alexis, thank you so much, man. This was lots of wisdom. Looking forward to partnering with you and helping these agents really accelerate their business.
Thank you so much, Jordan, for having me. I really appreciate it.
You got it, man. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'll catch you in the next one.